I'd break into one of my friends' houses, even if they weren't home, start playing games. Every day, I would do something, and I would end up in the principal's office. And I'm thinking to myself, am I just in my comfort zone here? Like, what am I doing? Am I put it out for $5 because I don't think many people want to play it? We'll just see what happens, and just so happens a lot of people seem to like it. I grew up here. I grew up in Santa Cruz. I liked to play alone. I don't look at being alone as a bad thing. I had friends, but I wasn't really keen on hanging out. Most of my memories from when I was little were of me going on adventures by myself out in the woods. I had an Atari when I was about 5. I played Jungle Hunt, Asteroids, this game called Hero. I was like the last kid on my block to get a Nintendo. I'd break into one of my friends' houses, even if they weren't home, start playing games. And I had an obsession with Castlevania, Zelda, and Mario 2. I was all about Zelda. That was like a game I was completely obsessed with. I used to play ghosts and aliens. When you're little and that stuff's real, the world's just so exciting. It kind of goes away as you get older. Being creative is the closest thing to magic that you can come. It's not logical. Whenever I go into that frame of mind, I kind of get pushed back into that world. I always have a theme of the mysteries of birth and death and dying. Anything that's mysterious and undefined and magical to me is usually what comes out when I'm writing, basically. My obsession with weird-looking, fleshy creatures comes from the fact that I live in Santa Cruz. We have these things called tide pools that have ocean life in them. I was obsessed with that when I was little. The idea that there's this infinite number of creatures. A lot of characters I make usually are like very fleshy, lots of skin folds, and that all comes from my obsession with my grandpa when I was little, who was a really big guy, and he had this giant scar down his chest, and then he had these holes, which I called the eyes. It looked like he had like kind of a face on his chest. I'd always asked to see him, and I was just obsessed with the idea of him being almost like a zombie. A lot of the elements of who he was seemed kind of gross, but like to me they were so cool. I was a hard kid to deal with, had a hard time paying attention, and I got in trouble a lot. Every day, I would do something, and I would end up in the principal's office. And if I didn't, I was faking sick to go home because I didn't want to be there either way. And I had a second grade teacher, and he came up with this formula. Instead of negative reinforcement of punishing me, he would reward me with just a piece of paper that said, Edmund had a good day on it. I collected those. I had a teacher in high school that gave me my own little show in the hall, and a lot of my art was really questionable. Like I had a giant painting of a vagina with like a hand bursting out of it. He put it in the hallway. When the principal told him to take it down, he said he lost the key. I just thought that was the coolest guy ever. And then I had a computer graphics teacher who would actually let me use her copy machine, which she wasn't supposed to make my comic. Just looking back, like I just pretty surprised at how cool these teachers were. Clay was an independent artist that came in my high school to talk to our class, and he was a comic artist. I thought he was really cool. I stayed talking to him. I just knew I wanted to be independent. It just seemed so rewarding what he was doing, even though he wasn't really wealthy. He's totally emulating about his comic book compilation, and I was trying to draw like him. I had him come over and he said he really liked my stuff, gave me the energy to keep making comics, and I started making more and more and more comics. Later synced up again down the road when I had lost my job, asked if he could like show me the ropes. He's just basically been my mentor for forever. Got me work when I had no money. He always had my back, taught me basically everything I needed to know about being independent and trying to live comfortably while being so poor. With Time Fuck, it was like I had all these different feelings and experiences that all revolved around the idea of this invisible box that people put around themselves and say, oh, this is my limit. I can't get out of this comfort zone. I'm not going to push myself any further, and I'm just going to stay here and die. Going to my high school reunion, so many of them were exactly the same people that they were 10 years ago, and it was quite depressing. And there was a lot of people who were upset with their lives and talking openly about it and crying. Sitting in the office with Alex, we hadn't done anything in forever. Stuff was just kind of going downhill, and I'm thinking to myself, am I just in my comfort zone here? Like, what am I doing? Am I just going to sit here and work with Alex on games that never going to get finished? Or am I going to grow some balls, have a greater goal? Making the game was me kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do and tell myself, you need to change your perspective on things because things have grown stale, and you don't want to just accept your fate and die here. And that's basically what the game was about through an abstract story. I'd say the first, arc would be Triachnid, because it was the first game after Gish when I was in that mindset of like, I want to push myself as an artist and try to use this medium to do something special with it. I wanted all the colors to be very gray tone. Like I wanted it to feel depressing. I wanted to do stuff what I was familiar with. Like I knew how to set a mood with colors, with music, and pacing. And I was playing around with a lot of that. And then I wanted to kind of set a mood with you having to care for this thing by actually moving it around physically. And you have just slightly emotional attachment to this completely inanimate object. By just adding gameplay elements, you lose your egg sac, you lose the game. Those are very simple elements, but they were still interesting. Yeah, that was my first stepping stone into the more personal, expressive medium of video games. Going into Isaac, I was at a completely unique place in my life. Alright, I just got finished with a game I completely loved, but the end of development was hell, the release was hell, and in a lot of ways it made me scared to work in games a bit again. My life was completely changed. Financially, it was night and day. I basically had so much freedom to do whatever I wanted. I didn't set out to make a game that was going to make any money. I wanted to make a game in a week with a friend online and just have fun doing it. And it just kind of morphed into this game that I was very unsure of. Put it out for $5 because I don't think many people want to play it. We'll just see what happens. And just so happens a lot of people seem to like it. And I'm sure a lot of it has to do with the fact that people knew me from Super Meat Boy, and that helped sales without a doubt. But it's pretty crazy to see so many fans. Like, it's to the point now where people didn't know that I'm involved with Meat Boy and know me from Isaac. In 2005, when Gish won the grand prize at the IGF, it wasn't necessarily this bout of confidence, but more or less, how the fuck could I ever outdo this? What's the point? What's the point in continuing to make games because I'm never going to win the IGF again? You know, how can I outdo Gish? And I fell into this complete pocket of depression of feeling like I'm as good as I'm going to get. There's a confidence in that was a bit too dangerous, thinking that I'm the best at what I can be at that point in time when really I didn't even know what I was doing. But it took me 2 years of being pretty depressed about it, change my perspective and switch gears a bit and being less about making a game and getting it into the IGF and winning, and more about pushing myself as an artist and growing. That was how I was able to focus on personal growth. I think it's crucial to have self-doubt and question yourself to the point of convincing yourself you're not that good, because you're not. There's not a week that goes by where I don't have an epiphany about some aspect of game design that makes me a better designer. Years from now, I can only imagine that I have a really, really good grasp on game design, and I might be able to make something way better than anything I've ever done before. And that's what I get to look forward to, instead of feeling like I've peaked.